How do you transform an international upbringing, a passion for inclusion, and decades of marketing experience into groundbreaking success in the hospitality industry? In this episode, we'll explore what it takes to lead with intention, mentor the next generation, and shape the future of meetings and events. Stick around for an inspiring conversation about breaking barriers and reaching new heights.
Welcome to the Events Demystified podcast, where we demystify the world of in-person, virtual, and hybrid events, AV production, and AI technology by sharing practical tips, tricks, and strategies to help your event succeed. This podcast is brought to you by Treefan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency that caters to event professionals, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. We specialize in AV and AI education, integration, automation, and implementation, all based on our Fit for Events framework, which focuses on futuristic AV production, innovative AI technology, thriving audiences, and empowering behind-the-scenes teams. And I'm your host, Anka Platon Treefan, with over 2 decades of hands-on experience in event production, event management, and now AI technologies and cybersecurity.
Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Events Demystified podcast, where we demystify AV, AI, and leadership with a holistic focus on fit for events, well-being for event professionals and entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Anka Platon Trifan, and today I am super thrilled to welcome Reina Herschdorfer, an accomplished leader in the global meetings and hospitality industry. Reina serves as the Director of Marketing and Public Relations for National Meetings and Events for Caesars Entertainment, where she leads marketing, public relations, and social media strategies for the company's 500 million portfolio spanning Las Vegas, Atlantic City, Reno, Tahoe, and beyond. Her career highlights include launching iconic venues like the Harrah's Waterfront Conference Center and Caesars Forum, as well as leading initiatives efforts for a 400 million reinvestment in Atlantic City. With over 20 years of experience in international hospitality, Reina has led leadership roles at Acre Hotels, Starwood, IHG, and Disneyland Paris, where she managed high-profile events, including the grand opening and corporate gatherings of over 10,000 attendees. Her work has earned her the Chairman's Award, the Smart Women Hall of Fame Award, and the HSMAI Bronze Adrian Award for Best Integrated Marketing Campaign. Rena's journey is as diverse as her background, having lived in 5 countries and speaking 5 languages. She brings a global perspective to her work and a passion for inclusion, mentorship, and wellness. And with that, let's welcome our guest to the stage. Rina, welcome to the show. What a pleasure it is to have you here. And before we dive into this conversation, I just want to congratulate you on what a wonderful road show that Caesars Entertainment, led by you, has put on just this past month. What an achievement that is.
Thank you, Anka. It was amazing. It was an incredible experience.
I bet. I mean, I'm sure we're going to touch on that as we continue our conversation today, because to pull that off and all those pieces that you have to have them work together, that's a lift.
It was definitely a lot of work and a little bit more than I had anticipated, but very, very exciting nevertheless.
For sure. Now, you have lived in 5 countries and you speak 5 languages. I don't think I've had a guest that has achieved this Do you have a favorite word or maybe a phrase in any of those languages that you speak that sums up your outlook or your life?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, Anka, because yes, I do. Dutch is my native, French is my second, English is my third. I moved to the United States, to New York at 13, didn't speak any English. I know I don't sound like I didn't speak any English. Learned Spanish and German in school. But the word that really comes to mind is a word that is not one of the languages that I know. And the word that comes to mind is Hage, which is actually a Danish word. And my daughter is about to move to Denmark in July, so I'm really excited about that. And I spent some time in Denmark recently. There is a Dutch word that's similar. It's called gezellig, but Hege is a lot nicer and a lot easier to pronounce. And it really just means coziness, happiness, joy. It's a mixture. And I thrive on creating a life filled with joy, really, both at work and personally.
I love that. You seem to be someone that if you put your mind to learn a new language in like 3 weeks, you're gonna get it done.
I don't know about 3 weeks, but let's just say that languages, as a child, I mean, I didn't have any choice, right? I moved from the Netherlands to Belgium, French speaking part, didn't speak any French at the time, had my struggles, moved to New York, didn't speak English, had my struggles, etc. And then German and Spanish came along. And I think once you know 2 or 3 languages, it is easier to learn more. And what I love about languages is that it's not just a language, it's you're learning the culture, you're connecting with people. When I worked for Disney, before I worked for Caesars Entertainment, I was in the London office and in the Paris office. And when I worked with my colleagues in Paris, we always spoke French because for my French colleagues, of course, it was a lot more comfortable to speak in French than it was in English. And I think that's really the difference, right? The connections that you make are deeper when you speak a language, even if other people speak English.
Absolutely. I can see a lot of people being able and capable to do that, but I think the thought, the fact, the intention behind the thought, I think it's so important because you're absolutely right. Like you make yourself more one with them, available to them, more culturally blending with where you are. And it's a fantastic attribute. I think these days people are probably not, unless they're very gifted in that area, they're not going to put the effort. Isn't that sad?
Yeah, well, I think because English is so prevalent everywhere that it's so easy to say, oh, I don't need to learn the language. But
You're
I
absolutely
think
right.
I really do believe there is value in speaking the language. If you want to really connect with people, you need to be, like you said, on their level, right? You need to meet them where they are. And it's very interesting when you think about languages because they're living as well, right? They change, they
Mhm.
evolve, and it's so cultural.
Absolutely. Well, this is a great segue into my first question because I was thinking about your experience. I was thinking about this international upbringing that you have had that must have shaped who you are and your perspective on so many different things. So, if we were to talk about inclusion and global leadership, would you say that there was some influence because of this international exposure that you've had over the years through different roles and responsibilities and different seasons in life and different countries that you've lived?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that travel does some of that when you're traveling. And I know in our industry, a lot of people travel. And I do believe that when people travel and get to experience different cultures, get to meet people from different places, see different things, whether it's food, architecture, music, the way different people think, I think it does part of that. But when you're living in different places, it's really immersive. I mean, it can be very challenging. And even though I've done it many times, it is a challenge every single time because you are in some ways reinventing yourself, right? And you have to immerse yourself in that particular culture. And for me, because it's just how I was brought up and how I live, I enjoy meeting people from different places who have different ways of thinking, who have different ideas. I want to think that I'm a pretty open-minded person. I'm incredibly flexible. We did a test a few years back. It was a leadership test about flexibility, and my flexibility on a scale of 1 to 100 was like in the 90th percentile, which
Wow.
hardly surprising. And because I think I've just had to be flexible throughout my life, and it could also be what my genetic makeup is. But I believe very strongly that the more opinions you have, the more cultures you have, the wider your scope is, you're going to get better ideas. You're going to have different perspective because we all have a lens, right? We all think that people look at things the way that we look at things, but that's not necessarily the case. And it doesn't mean that one is right and one is wrong. It just means that there are differences. And maybe something is right today for one person and wrong on another day, or depending on the perspective. So I think I'm a big believer, and I love multicultural environments. I especially experienced that when I worked for Disney in Paris, and I was part of the opening team for Euro Disney and now Disneyland Paris. And it brought together people from all over the world who were in hospitality. What you had is you had different cultures, different languages, and then you had people who came from different hospitality backgrounds who all had different ideas. And I can tell you, it was a very, very interesting time. I headed up convention services at the time. So I was on the operational side for meeting and events. And I had come from an environment where total flexibility, the customer is number one. And it was definitely a cultural experience because at the time, I think things have changed a little bit now, but I think at the time, there was a lot of inflexibility, like in the culture. And you had, what was interesting to me at that time too, was that you had a lot of younger people who were, again, from all over the world working there. What I really noticed in particular was that, and I'm lumping the Europeans together, which is really unfair because there is no such thing as a European, just to make that clear. And you know this as much as I do. I mean, every culture is
So
different.
different.
Right? I mean, they're completely different. But having said that, what I noticed in particular was that young Americans, you had to hold back. So in other words, a young American would basically in many ways were fearless. They were going to do whatever it takes. They were going to make decisions. They weren't necessarily going to follow the authority. While in general, the Europeans were much more the rule followers and wanted to make sure that they were following the process. Now, in meeting and events, we're always asking for things that are outside of the box, outside of the norm. So that was a very interesting time for me because I had, prior to Paris, I'd been working in Boston. So I had been in hospitality. I was the director of catering convention services for the Westin Company Place. And there, anything was possible, right? And we really took care. I would say that's really where I learned how to take care of the customers. And then coming to Disney in Paris, all of a sudden, when I needed something that was not typical, the operational people immediately had a challenge with that. And I had to learn that you really can't bully your way through to make things happen, that you have to be very strategic about it and ask for help, see how we can make it happen, etc. So it was a very interesting time. I learned a lot about diplomacy and how to work with different cultures, for sure.
For sure. I mean, so much to unpack into what you just said, because I mean, I can see how this incredible journey has fostered this sense of resilience and adaptability. As you mentioned, flexibility. Not a lot of people can say that they're like in the top ratings when it comes to flexibility. They might say that on paper, but then when you actually try to get them through motions, you realize actually they're not flexible. They hate change. You just can't deal with it, right? So that is a quality that it must have been part of this journey of bringing that. You've had to move from place to place and adapt to different cultures. And I can tell you firsthand, coming from, say, the European, as you mentioned, not European to lump it up, because like Romanians in Europe are completely different than French in Europe, or like Spanish in Europe, or Germans, or Austrians, or English people. So coming from that culture to US, I had my own set of learning to do, because I felt this cultural barrier like straight up, and it was hard the first few years. It was hard to understand, how can I fit in, how can I belong, how can I be different but still belong, right? So that was a very long in the kind of like journey in the making. And I can only imagine, like, even moving from place to place, country to country, you would hit the same type of like initial revelation. I'm like, oh, we gotta adapt again. We gotta learn the ways of the land. We have to figure this out, right? That has been, for me, doing it once from Europe to America, an interesting story. I can imagine you having to go through that again and again. And that brings me to something what you said about the young Americans versus Europeans, French young professionals. I know you've spent a lot of your time and efforts into mentoring. And I'm wondering, like, from opening, right, global landmarks to leading teams, I'm wondering how much mentorship has been a common thread in your journey. Because from what I could tell, from what I could read in your bio and the discussions that we've had, you have always been that pivotal person in someone's life to help them achieve incredible things. What's your approach to mentoring, and why is it so important to you?
Well, it's a really good question, Anka. I think some of it is just something that's come natural for me, is I enjoy helping others achieve and helping them evolve. I mean, when I think back, I mean, I have several examples, but one that comes to mind is, again, when I worked for Disney in Paris. I had a young man, he was about 20, 21 years old and did not have a lot of experience. And he was really our coordinator, and that's it. I mean, he was not in a high level role. I was heading up convention services, but he had an amazing attitude. One of the things I've always looked for is people who have amazing attitudes, people who want to learn, people who want to grow, people who are also open-minded, people who are open to coaching. One of the things that I have told several people, including one of the young ladies in my office today who started off as an intern and is now one of our marketing specialists, so she's been promoted twice, is that when you have somebody on your team who is open to feedback and who wants to feedback, there's real joy in seeing them grow, right? And there's something really amazing to see someone who has got the right attitude, the right outlook, who wants to do well. And I believe in general, people want to do well. I'm a real believer that most people want to succeed. Most people want to do well. And as a leader, when you hire somebody, whether it is an intern, whether you have a mentee, whether it is somebody who is on your team, no matter what level, it is part of your role to help them be successful. Because when you hire them, you believe that they're going to be successful. Now, when they join your team, it's part of your I believe that it's part of your responsibility to help them be successful because they're now in a new environment. There's a lot of adapting. I mean, it's always very uncomfortable when you start something new, right? As human beings, and even for me, who's gone through a lot of change, every time I go through a major change, a major upheaval, I go through a lot. I have a lot of emotions that come with that, right? A lot of uncertainties, a lot of insecurities. And it's always helpful to have somebody there that will support you and guide you and remind you that you're going to do great, you're going to do fine. And to feel uncomfortable is normal. But coming back to the mentoring situation, so this young man, today, he is the founder and president of a hotel company in Europe.
Wow.
And he worked for me at 2021. And he's often said to me that I helped him. I influenced his journey in life, and there's nothing more rewarding than that. And in terms of how I do it, it's very personal, right? Every situation is a little bit different. Every person is different. I really like to get to know people. I like to get to know what's important to them, what they are looking for. I want to help them in the direction that they want to go in. I want to open opportunities for them. I want to show them options. I like sharing information. That's another thing. I believe that some people are uncomfortable sharing information. I like to share. I'm a very open person. I'm an open book, and I will share whatever you want to know. And it's, of course, my point of view. And I'm always going to say it's just the way I see it. It doesn't mean it's right. There are many, many different ways to look at it. But it is incredibly rewarding. I have a mentee right now who goes to UNLV, and he's graduating, and that's really fun as well, just to have somebody come in and show them the way. It's incredibly rewarding.
I love that. Your passion for helping others succeed is really inspiring. And I hope more event professionals will take that as an example and mentor, especially the new coming generation, that we got to foster a, like you said, inclusive and welcoming environment. And to what you said earlier, I've always said, like, you can train for aptitude, but you very rarely can you train for attitude. And if you have an attitude right off the gate, I think aptitude, skill set, all of that can be learned. But you have to first have the attitude. And that's something that I'm working with my kids to
Right.
make them understand how important that is. Now, let me take you back to something that you shared with me. And this was something that your sister said, is that you get everything you want.
Yeah, well, you know how it is with siblings, right? I mean, all of our siblings, they love us, but they also are the first ones to point things out. And yes,
100%. I am still reminded because I'm the oldest of 10, right? Like I have 7 sisters and 2 brothers, and we all grew together until I moved to US when I was almost 21, not yet 21. And I don't remember a lot of the things that our upbringing and all the things, but they remind me every time they have the occasion. Oh, yeah, remember when I wasn't organized enough and you literally take my stuff and throw it outside the room if I didn't organize my room? I'm like, no, I don't remember any of
I
that.
know that's another thing that's very funny, right? The things that we remember, the things I remember are very different from what my sister remembers.
Exactly. But what's your secret sauce to setting and achieving goals? Let's start with that.
Well, okay. I mean, in terms of getting what I want, first of all, I don't always get what I want, but let me be clear
Your
about
sister thinks that you do.
Oh, I think that first of all, the important thing is to know what you want, right? Is to really spend time. I would say it's very retrospective, right? It's very like
Mhm.
within yourself to really understand what you want and then to learn what you want. I mean, there's a number of things for me that come into that. It's what you want logically, but then there's also what you want emotionally, right?
Mhm.
It's heart and mind combined. I had a father who was an engineer, chemical engineer, so he was incredibly logical. So growing up, I thought people make decisions very logically because that's what he really taught me, right? That you make decisions based on facts. The
Right.
reality is that we really make decisions based on feelings, on emotions.
That's right.
So it's very interesting to be aware of that, right? I mean, it's a combination. For me, when it comes to getting what I want, it's first of all, really defining what it is that I want, what it is that I want to personally, what I want to achieve, where I want to be, who I want to do it with, and kind of build a picture. I like to have, for me, I'm a very intuitive kind of person. So for me, it's my intuition, it's how I feel about something. And then once I make that decision, then it comes down to being a little bit more logical and kind of thinking through now, how am I going to achieve that? Right? How am I going to reach that goal? And then I'm a big believer in putting a plan in place. I mean, I always say, plan the work, work the plan. It's really not very difficult. I mean, you're going to have obstacles along the way. And I think that's another thing that you need to realize is that it's possible that when you make a plan, you may not hit it 100%, but you're going to get very close. The challenge is when you don't have a plan and when you don't have something that you are working towards, whether it's personally or professionally, yes, things will just happen, which is okay, but they're not necessarily going to happen the way you want them to happen. So it requires some thinking and some thought. Now, I know for some people, like something that I've always said as well is making no decision is also a decision. So, in other words, if you don't make a choice, the choice will be made for you
Mm.
as opposed to you making the choice. So I would rather be the one to make the choice. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't be spontaneous, you can have fun. A plan is just a plan. Another thing I learned early on, because I struggled with this in my early 20s, after graduating from hotel school and really figuring out what I wanted to do, etc. I struggled with it a little bit because initially I was brought up that when you start a book, you need to finish a book. But the reality is you can put the book down and start a new book. It's the same thing with plans. You can have a plan. And if halfway through the plan, you decide that the plan doesn't make sense anymore, or you need to change the plan, then you change the plan. It's really not that complicated. I think that it's the same thing when people are choosing, what am I going to major in? What am I going to do for my life? Just do something. Make a move, make a plan, do it. And then if you decide it doesn't work out, you do something else. Don't be afraid. I think that's the other one. It's just don't be scared. And it doesn't mean that you won't have the feelings of fear, but overcome your fear. And something that I heard from a speaker quite a while ago, basically he said, it was a he, I think it was a he, it might have been a she, it doesn't really matter, said that courage is doing something even when you are afraid. And we're all afraid, right? We're all afraid to make mistakes. We're all afraid to make a wrong turn, but it doesn't matter. It shouldn't stop you. We just have one life, and it's our opportunity to make of it what we make of it.
Before we continue, I want to give a shout out to the team at TreeFan Events. We are not just an event planning and production agency. We are focused on integrating innovative AV solutions, AI strategies, and wellness-focused practices through our Fit for Events framework. Whether you're planning live, virtual, or hybrid events, the team at TreeFan Events is here to provide personalized planning, strategic design, and seamless technology management to ensure everything runs flawlessly. And now, we are offering AI-powered workshops to help you grow your business, build stronger teams, and elevate your events to the next level. If you want to learn more about how the team at TreeFan Events can help make your event unforgettable, visit treefanevents.com.
One thing that you said earlier about feelings and logic that really resonated with me because it's actually part of a chapter that I shared on LinkedIn as I am unveiling the writing of this book that I'm in the process. And it's from a quote, I think it was Antonio Damasio that said, "We are not thinking machines that feel, we are feeling machines that think," right?
I love that. Love
And it's
that.
100% accurate because no matter how much you think you're logical, at the end of the day, it is your feelings, your emotions that will lead even that logic. And my husband is the same way, like very logical. And in the beginning of our marriage, I remember us like running into arguments because I'm logical, but really I'm more emotional and more feelings and more in touch with how I feel and what my gut is telling me. And it was very hard like to win arguments with him if I didn't have a measure of, not that I needed to win the argument, but I wanted to make my point to come across that just because I don't have something tangible to back this up, it doesn't discount this whatever decision or whatever that I was talking about. And eventually we came to understand how we operate differently. And in most cases, actually, I was always in the right because it wasn't just what you could see on the outside world, what you could logically can gain information from. It was this gut feeling based on, I don't know if it's experience or if it's wisdom or if it's life in general, but when you know, you know. And I think as women, sometimes we doubt ourselves. Like we don't necessarily raise our hand in a meeting or raise our hand to when the decision point comes to put our opinion forth if we don't think that we have the logical explanation behind it. Whereas sometimes just an instinct, just a gut feeling is enough to make a point because that point is still valid. And I will tie that with, yes, I am a big fan of analytics and I am a big fan of what gets tracked gets measured because what gets measured gets improved. I couldn't tell you anything about my bodybuilding journey if this wasn't true, because there would be no bodybuilding journey. There would be nothing to talk about unless you really track progress and you really very detailed and very disciplined in that regard. So all of those things that you said, I just resonated so deeply with me, because I don't know if it's our upbringing as being different and understanding how flexible you have to be in order to operate in this world and have that open-minded mindset that it's not just one way, the right way, or my way or the highway. It could be many, many ways. So thank you for vocalizing that so well. And I would love to maybe switch gears for just a little bit, because you've led so many iconic events and campaigns for Caesars Entertainment. I mean, just the latest show, right? Like, let's start there. But if you were to pinpoint one of your proudest achievements in your current role as Director of Marketing and Public Relations for National Meetings and Events and Caesars Entertainment, would you be able to share what that would be?
Well, Anka, I've been in my current role for just over 10 years. So there have been quite a few initiatives that I've had over that period. I'm proud of many of them, but the one I'm most excited about at the moment is certainly the Wellness Initiative. And the Wellness Initiative, I launched Wellness in October of 23. It's just really interesting how that came about. We all went through the pandemic, right? The pandemic was difficult for all of us, including us. My team was shrunk down substantially. We were not able to market events during that time, certainly not meetings. So it kind of changed the whole dialogue. During that time, I also, for the first time, wasn't able to do any planning, which was incredibly difficult for me. And I realized how much of a natural planner I am, both personally and professionally. And so it really put me in a position of, okay, now what? Because you really had to just be present. You just had to kind of make it a day at a time. And every day you had to see what was going to happen next. And you had to change gears constantly because we didn't know what was going to happen. It was a very, very uncomfortable and uncertain time for me and for many, many others, right? And during that time, I started also doing yoga, which really helped me a lot. Yoga and meditation. It gave me a chance to focus on myself, on the present, what have you. So we're coming out of the pandemic now, and our company, recognizing that this was a challenging time as well, started doing a lot of communication about wellness, mental health as well. Started seeing a lot of that communication and being on my own personal yoga meditation journey as well. All of a sudden, it's funny how ideas come. And the idea came, hey, why don't we start wellness menus for meeting planners to incorporate wellness into
Oh,
conferences?
I love that.
Now, we had been sponsoring a digital wellness challenge by Hecka Health for quite a few years. So we had dabbled in it a little bit. People have done yoga at 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning, but that doesn't always resonate for me. I like to do it. I don't like to do it that early in the morning. But anyway, I thought we should launch wellness menus. So I went on that journey to incorporate wellness activations, wellness practices, wellness speakers, and go through our menus to offer wellness options. So that was in October of 23. Took a little while for it to launch operationally. That brought us into 24. And then we decided to do our first wellness forum where we invited clients for Global Wellness Day, which is the second Saturday in June every year. So we held our first wellness forum that was at Nobu Hotel at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. We originally were thinking 50, 60 clients would have been successful. Well, we had well over 100 because the demand was much higher than we anticipated. Our sales team was super excited about it as well. It was amazing how everybody embraced it. So that was in 24. Then we incorporated wellness into different events throughout the year as well, because we really wanted to bring wellness into the forefront. We also added non-alcoholic botanical drinks, a little bit better than mocktails, right? Not as sugary, a little bit
Yep.
healthier, more along that line. So that was another initiative we started with. And we had an event during IMEX that was a zero proof event as well, which I thought was really exciting. And decided that for this year, we would do a roadshow, a wellness roadshow. So we took wellness on the road. We started in Atlanta. From Atlanta, we went to Chicago, Chicago to Seattle, Seattle to Phoenix or Scottsdale, then to Philadelphia, and then to DC. And our salespeople were heavily engaged. We had about 50 to 60 people per location. DC was a little bit larger. We were closer to 100. We went to unique venues, which presented its challenges. We had some great sponsors that helped us along the journey. We brought in an essential oil partner, which provides a little essential oil ring, a little nose ring, which is super cute and really, really
I
healthy.
love that at IMAX. It was my favorite thing.
Right? I mean, it's awesome. I have them here as well, and our salespeople really like them. We brought in DMC. I brought in CSI DMC to help us as well, because I really needed some help, right, along the journey. Somebody who could really help pull it all together and do a lot of the advanced work, which was phenomenal. We brought in Encore Global, which again, from an audiovisual standpoint, they did a phenomenal job. Brought in DreamWorks Massage. That was awesome as well. I had some great speakers. Seppi, I don't know, Sepide Vazi. I don't know if you know her. She does
I
the
know her. She's a good
work.
friend of mine. Yes.
She's amazing. And then, of course, David T. Stevens.
Yes.
We sponsor his podcast as well. And he was there as our MC. Nolan Nichols, who's a fantastic speaker, also incredible. And then we brought in Tableau. I don't know if you've heard of Tableau, but Tableau is a water sponsor, and they have a water purification system, and they can also measure how many bottles we're taking out of landfill by utilizing their water.
I love
And
that.
then, of course, each venue had its own caterer. Then we brought in AFR for furniture. It was definitely an undertaking, and every location had its challenges. We even had to change dates for Phoenix. It's funny because Phoenix was the only location where we were outside, right? Because everywhere else we're in the winter,
Right.
February, March. So can't count on the weather.
Yeah.
So for Phoenix, we went to a Frank Lloyd Wright Museum. It's Taliesin West. It's beautiful, amazing, in the middle of the desert. And we were planning a sound bath outside. Well, about 10 days before, we looked at the weather, and it was going to be raining really, really heavily.
Oh no.
And this was the one location where we really needed to be outside, and it should not have happened. So we had a challenge and had to figure out what to do, and I was really concerned. And then luckily the fall overnight, I woke up and I thought, we should just change dates. Simple. So I reached out to our leadership, and everybody agreed. We moved the date. It was a little challenging because that meant that some of the participants weren't able to come. We had to see who else could come in instead. We had to move all the practitioners, move all the flights, the hotel, etc. But we ended up moving it. And we ended up going 2 weeks later, and the weather was absolutely glorious.
I love it. Well, I'll tell you what, I have been following the road show journey through social channels and your post on LinkedIn, and it almost felt like I was part of it because technically I have been part of much of this, like right from working with David when we had you on the podcast, Return on Wellness, and we recorded that live in Vegas. And that was such an amazing experience to get to meet you in person, first off, but then to actually hear the story that brought you here and also what this wellness. And for anyone that's curious about more in-depth understanding of Caesar's wellness menu, definitely go to that episode. I'll make sure it's in the podcast episode notes as well. It's got a lot of views, so very popular. But as the producer of Return on Wellness, I've been behind the scenes in all of those escapades and adventures that David was going on himself as he was part of some of the events that you just mentioned. So I almost feel like I'm a tangent in the know of all the things that happen. And what a wonderful, phenomenal crew that you put together for the road show, and then all the experiences that you have provided for those attendees to be part of. I can only phantom that hopefully one day I'll be able to join one of them and enjoy it myself, because that looked amazing. And regardless of like those little details that you know and the team knows, everyone else sees what an amazing experience has had. And I'm sure even the attendees, all they saw was the output, the execution of this event that left them wanting more, wanting to be part, maybe wanting wellness to be more of an integral part of their life, not just their event, right? I mean, obviously, the ROI is how can we bring more wellness for events and meetings. But personally, I think it has an impact on your life when you go through an experience like that. And I recall those days in 2020, COVID. It's what brought me on my own fitness journey, bodybuilding journey, and has changed everything. And it was this post that I shared, a personal post on LinkedIn about how bodybuilding is not about just showing on stage for 10 minutes with some really nice tan on, shredded body, this nice suit with sparkles and the makeup and the hair done. It's who you become in the process that you get to that moment in time. And becoming is a long process. Becoming is not something that happens overnight. It's not something that you just turn the switch on or snap your fingers and you're, ta-da, I've arrived. It's not. It's a life journey sometimes. And for me, it's this becoming that has really challenged me, but also provided so much growth. So I can only imagine some of the journey that you just shared. It's similar to that. Like it was a personal journey that now you cannot not share because it has impacted you so personally. Now you want everyone else to experience it.
Yes, I agree with you. First of all, I think it takes a lot of discipline, like you said. The discipline is to know that you don't see the changes immediately. It takes time. And I also agree with you that by bringing wellness to events, we're changing people's lives, right? We're changing people's trajectories. And we're hopefully giving them an opportunity to try something that they've never tried before. Because I think sometimes people who are fit and who are already taking advantage of some form of wellness, they benefit a little bit because they're always going to learn something new. But there are a lot of people who are not incorporating wellness into their lives.
Yeah.
And wellness can be baby steps. It can be a small change, whether it's when we talk about breath work,
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about EFT tapping, when we talk about just taking time. And I think it also changes the connections that we make with each
Mm-hmm.
other, right? I think there's some stats about how people who do some form of wellness together build stronger relationships with each other. And I believe that because you're on a different
Absolutely. It
level.
was
It's
actually
very
a
personal.
Strava study that I share with David. And because I'm big on Strava, all my workouts end up on Strava and I'm part of a few communities. And it was interesting to see their wellness report at the beginning of this year, where the biggest takeaway was that nugget. And what an important nugget that is when you bring it in the context of events.
Right, right. And I really believe that. I believe that if you can bring some form of wellness into events, you're changing the dialogue, you're changing the paradigm, you're changing what people are talking about. I also think that when you do that, people are more engaged,
Mm-hmm.
the connections are deeper, the learning is stronger, and it just changes the whole dynamic. And it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it's not just a question of ticking the box. It's really thinking it through, right? It's
Yep.
thinking through how can I create an experience where people walk away and feel recharged? They feel like they've learned something. They feel more connected. They feel more included. They feel more wanted. It's really about, okay, I guess it comes down to it's how do you feel after an event? The intellect is one piece, the
Right.
knowledge, but it's how did that make you feel? And I think even people who are not maybe as in touch with their feelings, we're humans after all. They still
Yeah.
have feelings, whether they're acknowledging it or not.
Yeah.
So I think it's very, very interesting. And I'm really excited that wellness is starting to really take off in our industry. And I love the fact that we're changing people's lives.
Absolutely. Well, Rena, you have achieved so much professionally while maintaining a rich personal life. So I have to ask the question, how do you balance, or I'm not so much, I think, a big fan of balance, more so much of integration. How do you integrate your career, your family, your passions, like wellness that we talked about, travel, and all the things that you do in a way that supports this professionally rich life?
Well, first of all, I work at it. It's not something that just happens.
What? You mean the secret is that it's not just naturally falling into place and you have to work at it?
Yeah, you do. You really do. I mean, you have to. First of all, I do live by my calendar, and I know there are those who are much more, I don't know,
Free
they take it
flowing.
as it comes, free flowing. I have a lot of friends who are like that, who are not in our industry
That
necessarily.
wouldn't be us.
They don't really understand, but I live with my calendar. So I plan and I schedule.
Yeah.
So I schedule my time for myself. I schedule yoga. I schedule lunch. I schedule personal phone calls. I make sure that I incorporate the things that I enjoy into my day and into my life. And I also think I reflect, right? I would like to say that I journal every day and I don't, but I wish I would. It is on my list of to-dos. It's hard to do that. Something I heard actually from Nolan Nichols, and he talks about writing down the things like storytelling, writing down what matters, what made your day special.
Mm-hmm.
That's another way to do that. I think part of it is just being aware of it and being conscious, right? And okay, I work hard, but I also make sure that I make time for myself. I think it's really, really important. Self-care. I mean, if you're not well yourself, you
Yeah.
can't be well, right? If your energy is high, you can achieve more. So I feel like I can achieve a lot in a short period of time. And then that gives me time to do other things. Another thing, I'm not a big TV watcher. I watch some television, but I'm very particular about what I watch. I like to walk, and walking is great because while you're walking, you can meet with a friend if you want. So that's a great way to socialize, spend time with, I have a wonderful dog and a wonderful husband. And so that as well. And I have children who are now young adult children. So of course they're leading their own lives, and I've worked hard to help them become independent and build their own community, because that's also really important. Community is a big one, right? Whether it's
Mm-hmm.
your personal community or whether it is your work community. I think one of the things I enjoy about our industry in particular, and the wellness industry, I might add, now that I'm focused on wellness, I'm really starting to build a community around that also, is it's nice to have people who are within your community. And that makes a big difference. So it's reaching out. I also think that when we have challenges, when we are stressed, other people are also share those stresses and share those challenges. So talk about it. You realize you're not the only one.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's all going to be all right. And the other thing for us is in what we do, I try to remind my team often is that we're not saving lives, right? We're not. And so to keep that in mind, right? So when something goes wrong and we know it will, you know what? We'll fix it and we'll move on. And that's it. There's nothing that important, really.
I love that. It's like we're describing my life living by my calendar, because that's honestly, I think that's one secret that not a lot of people tap into. In order to be a high capacity person, you have to schedule your life out. So much so that my kids, they look at my calendar. I have it right here on this monitor. And my 8-year-old comes to me and says, "Okay, Mama, I see that you have a break on Saturday after 12 p.m. How about we do a shopping trip just as girls?" And I'm like, "Baby girl, we're on." Goes right on the calendar. And like you, if I need to do cardio 45 minutes a day because I'm in prep for my next bodybuilding show, guess what? It shows up at 6 a.m. on my calendar. If I have to work out for 90 minutes every evening after work, because again, part of my prep, it shows up after dinner on the calendar. If it doesn't make it on the calendar, I think it's easy for us to find the excuse that, "Oh, I'll do it tomorrow." And then tomorrow becomes another tomorrow. And for me, that just never flies. Like, it has to happen because today I do the best I can do today. And tomorrow I'll do the best I can do tomorrow. And there goes my life one day at a time. I don't have to plan in advance, months in advance, because my life happens in days and weeks increments right here.
And I think you're right. I think don't look too far ahead. Like you can plan far ahead,
Sure.
stick it on your calendar, but don't be thinking about it. Like that's another thing for me is that I don't spend a lot of time in my head. If it's in my head, I'll write it down so that I don't have to be in my head
Yeah.
because I don't have time to be in my head. And that would be way, way, way too stressful. And that would be the way to get overwhelmed. So I do different little things not to get overwhelmed. And I'm a list person as well. I have long lists, many different lists actually. And I like it that way. And the same thing with planning, right? I don't mind having a plan. And as we talked about it earlier,
Yeah.
it's okay to change the plan. I might have something on my calendar. Like sometimes I look at my calendar and I'm like, whoa, I am so overscheduled today.
Yeah.
And then, or tomorrow, what have you. And then maybe I can move some things around to give myself a little bit of space
Yeah.
because you do need to have the space.
Absolutely.
You and prioritizing, right? I think that's the other thing is really learning how to prioritize. And I know it's not something that you don't always know that immediately, but do the best that you can. And the other thing I would say is don't second guess yourself. Generally speaking,
That gut
whatever you
feeling,
think,
go with it.
whatever, I mean, you're generally right, right? It's just
Yeah.
like your instinct. I believe very strongly that your instinct is often correct.
I love that. And one thing I wanted to actually share really quick. So I'm not a big journaler. I used to have this app as well where I'm like every morning I used to like journal, and I think it was good for a season. And it's okay to have seasons. It's okay to have season when you really need to unload a lot of the things that you're going through, and journaling, writing is a perfect outlet for that. But sometimes these days, actually, I will go back to my phone, my chat GPT, and record a note to myself and say, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, this is what today is, like giving a break of what I'm going through today. And I let it there because I know it's saved in the memory so that at the end of the week, I can actually pull a report of all the things that I was going through and feeling that week. So if I wanted to look as an overview, what were some of my challenges? What were some of the things that came out of that? Or how would you advise me, ChatGPT, my counselor and friend and advisor, to do this differently? And I know we're talking AI here, but let me tell you, AI companions have become a thing. And if you are using those tools, might as well use them in those little things and ways in which it can help and support your life in ways that are just meaningful to you or important to you. So just a little tip there. If you struggle, you have this audio note thing on the chat GPT with like, I don't have time to write, but I'm driving my kids left and right, and I'm in the car and I'm walking my dog. And I'm just going to share some things and then get a summary at the end of the day.
I agree with you. You reminded me of something that when we were talking earlier, just think about this for a moment. When I did all my moving, we did not have internet. We did not have GPS. I often think about it. I'm like, I don't even know how I made all the moves that I made and
Right.
did it all. And now, like when you think about the internet, there's a lot of things I don't like about it, but there's a lot of things I do really like about it. And one of them is that when you have an idea or when you're thinking of something or you want to fact check something, everything is available to you. So I'm a big believer in developing your curiosity. And the same thing like for your children. Like, and I mean, like really, really nourish that because curiosity is fantastic because it's just about information and there's so much information available.
Yeah.
And yes, I think I love the fact that you're recording yourself when you're thinking. I love that idea, actually. I might actually adopt that. And then it's fun to look back because sometimes,
Yeah.
wow, I was feeling that way and I don't feel that way. It's funny how one day you can feel one way and then the next day you feel completely different. Same
Absolutely.
circumstance.
Yeah. I give you permission to steal that idea.
Thank you.
And before we wrap up, Rina, so many wonderful pieces of advice and nuggets there that were shared, and ways in which you can integrate personal values and professional life into your everyday life. Let's look into the future. What's one piece of advice that you would want to give aspiring leaders who want to make a meaningful impact in the events and hospitality industry?
Wow, that's a big question, Anka. Let's see, one piece of advice. I don't know if I really have one piece of advice.
Many pieces of advice.
I would say, well, first of all, kind of going back to an earlier theme is be really open-minded. Be open-minded, be kind, be thoughtful. Remember that when, especially people who are first starting out, they're learning, right? They're learning, be forgiving. One of the things that I actually say a lot is when somebody says that's easy, it actually kind of annoys me because everything is easy once you know it. And when you've been doing something for a while, you've been working for a period of time, especially in our industry, you have a lot of knowledge that you don't even realize that you have. You just have it. It's part of who you are, part of who you've become. But for someone who's first starting out, everything is new. So it's hard when everything is new. It can be very challenging and it can be very uncomfortable because it can make you feel insecure. It can make you feel like, why don't I know that? Especially when the other person says, oh, that's easy or that's simple. Well, everything is simple once you know it.
Right.
So keep an open mind, be kind, be thoughtful, share as much knowledge as you can. Remember, people want to succeed, people want to do well, be encouraging, be grateful, thank them. Life can be hard, and we spend so much of our working life, so much of our life working,
Right.
that make sure that you're generating and creating an environment that is positive and that people thrive in.
What a wonderful set of pieces of advice. Yes, you're right. There can't be just one. There has to be a whole menu. So you just serve us the menu. But
And if you were to ask me tomorrow, I'm sure I'd have other ideas as
that's
well.
okay.
And
You
it's
don't eat the
all
same thing
good.
every single day, right? Like there has to be a diverse menu.
That's right. Exactly. Circumstances change, right? I mean, I could also say be disciplined. I think discipline is a piece of that, right? And it's a piece. Yeah, and work hard. I do believe in work hard. That's
Yeah.
probably my Dutch upbringing, right? It's very Calvinistic. We want to work hard. We want to do the right thing.
We want to earn it. Yes.
Yes. I mean, you earn respect, right? Respect doesn't just come. And
It's
the
true.
goal is not to earn respect. The goal is to have integrity. The goal is to do the right thing.
Absolutely. Well, Lorena, thank you so much for sharing your incredible advice and story and insights. And for all of our listeners that connected with you over the airways and over the video that we are posting of this episode, where can they connect with you and learn more about you in either a professional network or whatever you want to share?
Well, the best place is probably on LinkedIn, Reina Herschdorfer at LinkedIn, and happy to connect and happy to support in any way. And if I'm based in Las Vegas, so if you make it to Las Vegas, we'd love to share a coffee or a tea or a glass of wine.
Anything on the wellness menu coming up in the next few months that we should be aware of that event professionals can jot down their calendars?
Well, we will be planning another wellness forum next year. So we're starting to talk about that. And at IMEX, we will be serving a non-alcoholic botanical drink. So please stop by, come and say hi. Happy to share any information, any knowledge. We have a great list of speakers as well, and happy to share my experiences with anybody, really. So.
Well, thank you again, Rina, for such an inspiring conversation. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your community. And until next time, stay curious, stay innovating, and stay well, always striving for meaningful connections.
Thank you, Anka. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with other professionals like yourself. If you're interested in learning more about TreeFan events, including our future AI education talks and workshops, or to see how we can support your next event, book a free 20-minute consultation through the link in the episode notes. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and social media for updates on future episodes, industry insights, AI news and tips, and more. And if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out.